We have lots of NHL news and rumors to discuss, including the latest trade talk around teams like Montreal, Toronto, Buffalo, and Chicago. Plus, we have big news out of Philadelphia with a Matt Fay Michkov Scratched tonight, news from the waiver wire, and a major announcement from the NCAA regarding CHL players being eligible to play in their program. We'll discuss all that and the rest of the news coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots of NHL news and rumors to take a look at today. Let's start first with a quick update from the NHL waiver wire. Yesterday, we actually had Ducks defenseman Lucas Carlsson on waivers. I forgot to mention it in yesterday's video because we did have Max Jones clear and be reassigned, but Carlsson was on injured reserve and needed to be sent down to the minors, so we needed waivers to do that, so they put him through the process. He did clear and will be reassigned here as well. A quick signing in Boston today. They've assigned one of their prospects, defenseman prospect Loke Johansson, who gets a 3-year ELC. He was a 6th-round pick in this year's 2024 NHL draft. Of course, he's playing here close to me, actually, in the Moncton Wildcats team in the QMJHL. As I mentioned, big news tonight in Philadelphia as John Tortorella kind of strikes again here with some people are calling it a controversial decision. Matt Fay Michkov, the star rookie who was October's Rookie of the Month, has a healthy scratch tonight. They brought up Anthony Richard, who they said did have a good training camp, and they were happy and hoped, they wanted to be able to get him in the lineup and get him some games here at some point. So Michkov sits out tonight. Of course, he had a good start to the season. Certainly one of the more fun rookies and interesting rookies to watch in the month of October early in the season. But I think based on the general consensus with a lot of Philadelphia media, and I guess from what I've seen as well, is Michkov hasn't been nearly as good as he was early in the season at 5-on-5 as of late. So basically when John Tortorella is asked about this, he's basically saying that it's part of the process, not really elaborating a whole lot. He's not calling a player out. He's not saying he's been terrible. Part of the process, learning opportunity. Now, players, some people have a difference of opinion. Some people think that players cannot learn from sitting out. I would disagree with that. Personally, I do think playing is better experience, but sometimes, every once in a while, and it's not, if it happens too much, I think it's a bad thing. But occasionally, just to have a night off, have a little mental reset, and just to watch your team, and just to kind of watch the players that are doing well, just to kind of pick up some good habits, probably even for Michkov be a good exercise, and I'm sure they've probably already done this, but to watch some clips from his earlier in the season, like some shifts of his, where they were good shifts and where he was putting up points, and just to kind of remind yourself, this is what was working well for me. Sometimes you need a little reminder of that, just a little mental reset early in the NHL career and season for this young player. So, I mean, I get it. I know Tortorella is one of those people that kind of just rubs people the wrong way, and doesn't matter what he does, it's going to upset them. But in all honesty, like I said, based on, I haven't seen every single Flyers game, every single moment of it. I channel surf a lot. I try to watch as much games as I can, especially with the new Amazon Coast to Coast on Thursday nights. That certainly made my life a little bit easier on Thursday, trying to get as much of the action in as possible, because I usually have 4 games divided up on the screen at a time, jumping from audio to audio. You can kind of keep an eye on things. Of course, I watch all the highlights and all that, but from what I've seen, I early on, Michkov was electric and he was fun, and then he has kind of quieted down and hasn't been quite as effective. So we'll see what happens. I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing. I suspect it'll be a 1 game out and then back in. And I guess let me know your thoughts on the process here and whether or not you're fond or not of John Tortorella's decision. Now, as I mentioned, we had a major announcement today. Of course, we had talked back last week saying that today was going to be the day when the NCAA was going to be making a pretty important decision. They were going to be voting on whether or not CHL players were going to be eligible to now play Division I hockey. And that vote did pass, and it's going forward. So this is going to be a major shakeup to development of young hockey players and kind of the path that they might take to try to get to the NHL. Now, we know right now that the CHL and the NCAA were basically in direct competition for each other. And depending on who you talk to and the player itself, difference of opinions on what is the better path. Do I play major junior hockey in Canada, or do I go down to the States to Division I hockey in the NCAA? What's the best path for my development? What's the best path for my ability to get drafted and to be ready to hopefully have a pro career? And now there's less of a debate. It can be a bit of both in some cases. So obviously before, if you played one game of junior hockey, you were not eligible. So if you were even just like, even before you were officially on the roster, even if you're an affiliate and you get called up and you play one game, you lose your eligibility. That at least will no longer be the case. Now, there were some players that avoided the CHL and played in a different league altogether. Some of them were Canadiens and went to the States to either play in the USHL, or we've seen in case like a Cale Makar is a good example, played in the Alberta Junior League, which is outside of the CHL, because his intention was to go to college. I mean, he dominated that league, and a lot of people wondered, like, why is he in this league? Like, this is a lower level league, you know, because he wanted to go to college, and he couldn't play in the Western Hockey League because he wouldn't have been eligible anymore. So clearly, like, this is going to do a lot of things. So now you might see players, maybe because obviously, you know, the age group for major junior is 16 to 20. So maybe you'll see players go, they can do a couple years of CHL. You know, maybe a lot of players do about 2 years before they're draft eligible. And then maybe from there, after they're drafted, you might see some players leave, though, and go to the NCAA. It'll just depend, right? It depends on what they think is absolutely best for them. Obviously, the NCAA is going to have, it's a different beast. You're going to have some older players, right? So, you know, I guess it'll depend on the player and what they think is best for their development. But in some cases, we're going to have players who will play CHL hockey like they probably would have before. But when they're done at age 19 or 20, they can then go on to play college hockey if they want to and if they can get a spot, right? So their careers are not done. Like a lot of times in Canada, if you don't get an NHL contract or an opportunity to turn pro by the time you're 20, you're either going to go to Europe, you're going to be done, or you're going to go to maybe Canadian University Hockey. Now, Canadian University Hockey is probably going to have a big impact here too, because they recruit a lot of junior players that don't have the opportunities to go to the next level. You're not getting an NHL contract. You're not going to go to the NHL, AHL and try to become pro. A lot of them end up, you know, having an opportunity to go to the Canadian University level. And Canadian University hockey is good quality hockey. It really is. I know in my home city here, Fredericton, we've got the UNB team, which is like the national, they've won more national championships I think any other school in the country, but like they have an awesome program. But you know, could they compete with some of the top schools in Division I hockey and NCAA? I don't think so, right? It's not the same. So they're going to be impacted because there's probably going to be less players to pick from. Now this doesn't change with Division III hockey. CHL players are still not eligible to go there. But that's okay. I think that quality of hockey has an opportunity to get better because with the more number of Canadian players going into the NCAA, that from the CHL will probably have a trickle-down effect of some other players being pushed down to Division III. So either way, it's a great opportunity for hockey. It kind of creates, like I said, they're not going to be in direct competition for each other. Some agents already putting out some comments on this, fear that some small market CHL teams may struggle because if they have a star player, maybe that star player leaves sooner. They may play a year or two and opt to go to the NCAA rather than, you know, stay until they're 18 or 19, right? So they may struggle. And the other possibility that really does exist is the USHL has done a terrific job on its own. They've produced a lot of NHL talent, and they've had more draft picks from the USHL than I think any other league in the last 7-8 years. But there's possibility some of those teams could merge with the CHL too, because now you'll see an opportunity for them to work with the CHL because their players wouldn't be stuck from going to college hockey because they'll still be eligible. So it's going to create a whole new system here, and it's really overall should be really good and create more opportunities. So all in all, it's a great ruling, and I think long-term effects will be very, very positive. Some other news and notes around the league. Couple quick updates. New Jersey sending Simon Nemec to the American Hockey League. Of course, we talked yesterday about a deal. Could he end up getting traded? He's not getting playing time in New Jersey. We talked about a trade with David Reinbacher with Montreal, where they swapped young, promising defensemen. Obviously, that was just something came from Montreal media, a thought process they'll take a look at there. But obviously, he's been on the NHL roster all year and getting very little time. So I'm happy to see him getting to play. A little surprised in a sense that they sent him down, though. In Vancouver, Demko did return to practice like we thought he was supposed to, so that's good. Dakota Joshua is getting closer, but not in the lineup this evening, so he should be back hopefully in the next little bit. And in Ottawa, Artem Zub returns tonight, so he's back. Shane Pinto is not quite ready, but still practicing. Travis Green, head coach of the Sens, says that he is very close. Likely will get back in the next game or two. And David Perron, who's been away from the team due to family reasons, as we mentioned, some stuff going on with his wife and their complications with the pregnancy. I don't know. We don't really have any updates on the status of everything. No family updates, but he was back at practice today. So that's obviously, I think, going to be a positive thing, that things are at a point in his family, personal life that he can do that. I don't know. I mean, I know the Sens have they do have a short road trip coming up, so I don't know if he'll stay back or not. We don't really have any updates. We just know that he was at practice, which is a good thing. And hopefully he'll be able to get back in the lineup soon enough. We got big news from the PWHL. If you follow the women's game, of course, they unveiled their new jerseys today. Of course, last year they just had your basic jersey with the name going down the middle of the jersey. It was very, they all had their team colors and whatnot. We did have a logo reveal a little while back, and now we have the jerseys, which I'll give you a quick glimpse of them here. Obviously, you've got the Boston Fleet jersey with the nice teal, the Montreal Victoire team, of course, with the maroon, and obviously that's I like that one as well. You get the Ottawa Charge. Don't love the logo. It is wearing on me a little bit now that we see it on our jersey. I do like their red. Obviously, it's similar color scheme to the Sens there in Ottawa. You've got the New York Sirens. Don't love that one, but I do. It's pretty decent, I guess. I just don't know about the offsetting colors there. Then, of course, you've also got the other two teams there as well, the Minnesota Frost. I love the purple. I like the color. Don't love the logo, but I mean, it is a really nice color scheme here, in my opinion. So, with the 6 teams, obviously you get some new jerseys, which will be good for the league. You can, fans can start to buy, the more permanent jerseys and have a player name put on it and whatnot. It just really, really will help, promote things and just to have more of an attachment for the fans and whatnot. So it's good to see. Of course, Bauer is their partner, helping them put all that stuff together. Their second season of their PWHL will begin, I believe it's at the end of this month. So hopefully things continue to grow there. NHL insider Kevin Weeks put out on Twitter in the last hour or so a cryptic message that looks like there's a hint that he feels like a New York Ranger Igor Shesterkin contract extension just might be close to being finalized. At least that's what he's kind of led us to think based on what he's put out there. He obviously is like a picture of New York. It says 11.5 million. So we know that we've heard lots of talk around the 12 million mark for Igor. A lot of people thought they might have to kind of meet in the middle. We had heard before that they would go to 10.5, 11. So 11.5. If Weeksy is on to something, then maybe we'll get an announcement tonight. I know the Rangers are in action, so I don't know if that'll be, anytime here tonight. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, if that is announced, I'll likely do another video later on, and I'll update the pinned comment on this video to update you on that news. But lots of speculation there from Weeksy that it's close coming or will be announced here soon. So we'll see if he's on to something. On the trade front, update from the fourthperiod.com talking about some Montreal Canadiens potential moves. One player that was mentioned who I'm not 100% convinced will be moved this season, but I guess we'll see how things go at the deadline. I don't see it happening early, but David Savard, of course, right shot, defenseman, veteran guy, Stanley Cup to his name, good shot blocker, good penalty killer. he's going to draw a fair bit of interest. There's no doubt about it. They talked a bit about him and what kind of asking price they might be able to get, and the belief is they might be able to draw a first-round pick. If there's a contending team out there that wants to add a veteran depth defenseman that brings the qualities that he brings, the belief is that they might be able to get a first-rounder out of him. So we'll have to see, obviously, where that goes. When it comes to some other members of the Habs that they definitely would like to move, like Yoel Armia and Christian Dvorak, the belief is right now that from the fourth period that they would probably have to have at least a 20 to 30 game stretch of good hockey to have any chance at all to move those guys before the end of the year. Unfortunately, because of the poor play and this lack of results, it's not looking good for the Habs to be able to get anything out of those assets. Obviously, they're not going to be re-signed. I think that's a given. They won't be back next year, pending UFAs. But if they can't even be moved, I mean, are they going to be able to carry on their NHL careers? My guess is probably not. It's just kind of a sad state of affairs, really, when you think about it. I mean, Montreal could be busy in other ways, but those are kind of your main names. Obviously, there's still lots of talk around Jake Evans. We've heard lots of talk about the interest level being high and where he's a pending UFA, and teams are just kind of watching that situation closely. It's not an absolute given that Montreal moves them. There is a chance they sign him to keep him there. They do need some veterans around, and obviously, as some veteran guys expire or get traded, they need some guys to stick. So, he's still young enough, you could say, that he could make sense for them to keep. But at the same time, if the interest is high enough and the return is high enough, they might have to consider it. So again, we'll see where things go there. In Toronto, an article from James Myrtle of The Athletic talking about some cost-cutting moves. Of course, we know that they assigned Yanni Hakanpää and Connor DeWer to the American Hockey League on a conditioning stint. And just with the schedule there, the Marlies had a big gap between games. So it might go into the weekend here before they have a really chance to really seriously consider a recall. But the thing is the roster and the cap is going to provide some complications here. So clearly, guys like Philippe Myers and Matt Benning are players that could be waived or traded. I know they've been trying to move Benning, and at this point, they have not been able to do so. At least they haven't found a deal that they believe works. I'm not sure how close anybody's been, but his name is out there. There's believed to be some levels of interest, but again, if the Leafs don't get an offer they feel is justifiable, maybe they decide to put him on waivers, see if he clears, and then they can put him in the minor leagues and have him there to recall later on as extra depth, right? So it's not entirely all bad. The contract's small enough that they could have most of it buried, so it's not going to impact things too much from a cap perspective. But, also the other player that's still injured out there as well as Calle Järnkrok. So with three players, in the short term here, ready to come back and play, between Benning and Myers, he also mentions Nick Robertson and David Kampf as being your prime, most likely trade candidates. But again, difficult to say. I know Robertson would have some value. He hasn't had a great season, good preseason, but not a great regular season. Kampf, I think, would be more of a cap dump. I don't know that you're really going to get much value there because of the contract. He has some term and money left on it. So again, teams probably like the player, but I don't know how that's gonna work out. But there's definitely some players there that they're considering making moves for, but they have to determine, I guess, what the asking price is going to be on all these guys, what makes the most sense. But there's definitely going to be lots of moving parts in Toronto, and a guy like Robertson, to me, could be moved more likely than Kampf. He'd be a lot easier to trade than Kampf. Benning, probably they can figure something out, but if not, you could see him or Myers maybe even end up on waivers if need be. So we'll see how the Leafs proceed. And in Buffalo, we've talked before how Kevin Adams has been busy. Elliot Friedman has said that Adams is one of the more active GMs right now, and we know that they're looking for a few things to add to their roster, primarily a top four defenseman and a top six forward. We've seen some talk that maybe a reunion with Taylor Hall. Of course, we remember that, Taylor Hall did go to Buffalo for a year. Of course, ended up there back when Jack Eichel was still there. Decided that he didn't get the contract he was looking for in free agency. Signed a 1-year deal in Buffalo. Chance to play with Jack Eichel. Hopefully have a big year offensively, which would lead to a better contract after and maybe a trade to a contending team at the deadline if they weren't in the playoffs, which they weren't. So clearly, At this point, the Buffalo Sabres are in a completely different spot, but there is a little bit of history there with Taylor Hall, of course, who's currently playing with the Chicago Blackhawks. We know the Blackhawks haven't had a great start to the season either. They brought in lots of veteran help, so they can certainly afford to move a veteran. If they decide to go down that road, it's not going to be shocking if they do. I don't know, really, if you think about what the Sabres are looking for, is he going to be the great solution? I'm not 100% convinced. I mean, we've heard names like Dylan Cousins and Jack Quinn could even be in play for the Sabres. We've heard Bo Byram possibility being out there. It's hard to say what the Sabres are going to do, but I can't see the Sabres including any of those names, Byram, Cousins, or Quinn, and bringing back a guy like Hall. No disrespect to Hall, but I just don't think at this stage of his career and the injuries he's been through that he would be a player that they would be willing to take for any, in return of any of those players. There's just no way. I think it would be a pretty light trade return. If anything, for Chicago, it would be about getting cap space back, maybe a mid-round pick or something like that. It's not going to be anything, phenomenal going back to Chicago. So curious to see, but could those two teams definitely hook up on a deal? It's certainly remotely possible. I would not rule it out. The Sabres, like I said, they're an up and down team. They picked up a win against the Sens the other night, but now tonight they're playing the Rangers. If they can't find themselves in a groove and win, have a decent little winning streak to put themselves in a better spot in the standings, it wouldn't be shocking here in the next few weeks if they do pull off a trade. But like I said, they got to find the right help that they're looking for based on what's out there. Is Taylor Hall the answer to the Sabres' issues? I don't think it is, but let me know what you think down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.